The Atelier series carves a special niche in the RPG genre by Gaius Isidoro, I think is how you say it. Maybe. To be fair, I have never ever played an Atelier game. Maybe I have actually, and it was the gacha game on the phone, on mobile. I think it was the gacha game. I think it was the gacha game that I played. But that is about it. I've never it looks pretty. It looks pretty. The game series looks pretty. But I've never played a game aside from the gacha game, and I don't even think people like that much.
In 1996, a man so eager to create a game drafted a design document before he was even hired into a game company. His game was inspired by a historical alchemy course he took at university. Hired by Gust, Shinichi Yoshike began work on a game that was planned to be a tactical role-playing game. To distinguish the game from the numerous other RPGs on the PlayStation at the time, gameplay elements involving material gathering and alchemy synthesis were integrated into its gameplay. Yoshike had no plans on making a sequel, so he poured his heart into the game. It had a fantasy setting based on medieval Germany, but the alchemy system was grounded by having mundane items be created. Yoshike's interest in children's fantasy and classic novels like Anne of Green Gables inspired the narrative tone and main character design for the game. The main character, Marlone, was designed to appeal to a growing female gaming and manga market cultivated with the growing popularity of shoujo manga at the time. Yoshike insists that no romantic elements be included in the game, and the relationship between Marlone and her best friend Xia was directly based on the friendship between Anne and Diana from Anne of Green Gables. Marlone herself is the worst alchemy student at the prestigious Royal Academy of Magic.
The thing is, I have a feeling that this franchise has a really high percentage of a male audience. I do have a feeling that the series does have a pretty big male audience. Male consumer base. Just because of I've seen how cute the girls are. I'm sorry.
By her passion and eagerness for alchemy. Having failed her exams, her instructor gives her one last chance to graduate by telling her she must synthesize a high-quality item within 5 years. She is given her own workshop to perform alchemy, and she can fulfill requests from the people of the city, Salzburg. Depending on the speed and quality of the game's completion, players would receive various endings for a playthrough, with the best ones reserved for developing deeper relationships and making the best quality item for the ending. Kohime Ose created the character designs and artwork for the game. She designed them around Yoshike's wish to create a lighthearted, fluffy game. She replicated a German castle for cutscene art in Salzburg. Marlone's design...
The German tribe had been mentioned. See, Germany's just... we are everywhere. We are everywhere. Our influence is too great.
Was inspired by European witches, and she was ultimately given a look that showed her as a classy figure and a dropout. Ose's art provided a clear vision for the game's tone and gameplay. Daisuke Achiwa and Toshiharu Yamanishi co-composed the game's music. Atelier Marie, Alchemist of Salzburg was finally published by Gust on May 23, 1997, and it was an instant hit despite a lack of extensive promotion, selling 212,000 units in Japan by the end of 1997. The game made such a big splash that it was expanded on and released again later on the Sega Saturn and PlayStation, ported to Windows on April 28, 2000, and a remake was developed for the Dreamcast that was bundled with its sequel Atelier Alley and a computer virus courtesy of its developer and publisher Cool Kids in 2001. Gust released this remake bundle on the PlayStation 2 in 2005, and this version got a fan translation in 2008, and it also did not have the virus. On July 23, 2023,
So my man just sold a video game virus? What do you mean, bro, just sold a virus? What the heck? That's crazy. Wait, somehow I've heard this before. This sounds familiar. I think I've heard somebody talk about this game before. I'm pretty sure.
HD remake of the game was officially released worldwide on modern platforms, including Steam. One of the reasons I spent so much time talking about Atelier Marie is because the game really set an excellent precedent for what makes an Atelier game unique among all of the other JRPGs out there. It's a heavily character-oriented game that emphasizes personal development as an alchemist and relationships with NPCs more than a huge overarching narrative. Alchemy has varying importance in these relationships. There's usually very little, if any, romance in these games, and effort is made to create a warmer slice of life vibe to the story. I've personally played the remake to Atelier Marie, which includes the original game and the new version of the game with updated mechanics. I typically hate hard time limits in these kinds of games, but I actually enjoyed the one in Atelier Marie for the same reason I enjoyed.
This is how I think my chatters look. All of them. This is how I think my community looks. All like small, short, shrunken men and women. You're all chibis.
Enjoy the time limit in Princess Maker 2. And that's because the games are so short and have multiple endings, so it makes sense to have the time limit in the first place. If the games were any longer than the usual 6 hours it takes me to play them, I probably wouldn't be happy with the time limit, and find replaying the games to be too repetitive to be fun. Which is the sentiment I felt in playing some of the other games in the Atelier series with strict timed elements in them. Atelier Marie spawned several sequels involving the setting of Salzburg. Atelier Ellie, The Alchemist of Salzburg 2, released in 1998, refined the original game's features and included anime cutscenes from Studio Devolt. Isaemon Yamagata.
It's kind of, dude, I miss the time when JRPGs just had randomly put in like really pretty anime cutscenes. I miss that. They should pull this more off. I like the Atelier series. I've never played a game. Maybe I have to do that eventually. Crickets aren't tall in the first place. You will shrink me to chibi. You're a chibi cricket. Yeah. I just like the Tales games occasionally do that still, but man, I feel like we need to bring this back more.
Gata was the new character designer and illustrator for this game. It sold 161,000 units, and the third game, Atelier Lily, Alchemist of Salzburg 3, released in 2001, is a prequel to the previous titles where the alchemist Lily introduced alchemy to Salzburg. This game sold over 90,000 copies in its first year. A whole load of spin-off games based on Salzburg were created too. Hermina and Kulis, Atelier Lily, Another Story, released on PlayStation 2 in 2001. Imagineer published Atelier Marie GB and Atelier Ellie GB for the Game Boy. Marie and Ellie, Two People's Atelier, was created on the Wonder Swan in 2001. Marie, Ellie, and Anis was released on the Game Boy Advance in 2003. Sadly, with the exception of Atelier Marie in 2023, all of these games never got official releases in the West. After the development,
I wonder how many of those do have fan translations. I wonder. In general, there's like so many games that I think that I would love to play if they had fan translations. There's like a few Tales games. Like Tales of Fantasia has like a remake remaster that is really good, but it's in Japanese and nobody has ever touched it. It's like, or like a side story as well. I hate that.
Of Atelier Lily, Gus began work on a new duology of Atelier games taking place in the land of Gramnad, which was in the same world as Salzburg. Atelier Judy, The Alchemist of Gramnad, and Atelier Violette, The Alchemist of Gramnad 2 were released in 2002 and 2003 respectively. The new artist for these games was Jun Futaba, who was brought on for his passion for the series, and designer Yoshihike's desire to create a fresh look and sound for the new games compared to the Salzburg series. Atelier Judy removed the time limit aspect of the previous games, with time only affecting a few elements of the game world. This game also introduced popular series recurring character Pamela to the Atelier series. Atelier Violette brought back the time management mechanics. Both games simplified the alchemy mechanics.
You cannot kill this slime. Don't you dare kill this slime. I will feel offended. Don't. Why are you killing my brethren?
Mechanics that were getting increasingly complex after the development of the third game in the Salzburg series. Ingredients could age and deteriorate if kept too long in the inventory and affect the final results of alchemy. Atelier Judy inspired 3 audio dramas, a prequel,
unsubscribed, disliked, harassed.
Novella for Atelier Violette was released to promote the game before its release. Expanded versions of both games with more narrative, gameplay, and new characters connected the games better and were released on the Sony PSP in 2010 and 2011. New soundtracks were released for both versions with more music created for the new versions of the games included. Neither of these games have ever gotten official Western releases. But the West would soon see its first Atelier game, and I finally got to play my first Atelier game in 2005 thanks to publisher Nipponichi Software America.
Atelier Iris, Eternal Mana. Interesting. Interesting. Again, I've never played one. I have never played a game like this. Maybe it's soon, it's time. Maybe.
If you had never played an Atelier game in your life, like most Western people who were playing Atelier Iris for the first time in 2005 or 2006, you probably would have never known that the previous games in the series were primarily alchemy simulators before they were RPGs. Atelier Iris and the 2 games that follow it are the closest to a traditional JRPG that any game in the Atelier series has ever come, but alchemy still plays an important part in the gameplay. This is also the first game in the Atelier series to feature a male main character, Klein Keisling. Atelier Iris 2 continues this trend, again, but this time the game features two protagonists that can be switched. Belt focuses on exploration and combat, while Vase performs the alchemy. Atelier Iris 3 is unconnected to the first two games in the Iris series, but the gameplay follows a similar pattern, only with a three-person party. The Atelier Iris trilogy was a breath of fresh air with its very simple alchemy system integrated into turn-based JRPG game.
Interesting. So basically, what was once a alchemy simulator turned into a JRPG. I wonder what motivated the change of that decision, because the alchemy simulator seemed to be doing well in Japan. Maybe they just want to take the JRPG boom with them. I don't know when JRPGs became really popular, but I'm assuming somewhere around that time.
While the Iris series of Atelier games are by no means what I would consider top tier or great JRPGs, they were
And then, of course, you throw in a male protagonist in, so you can take take into consideration dudes playing it. I see the vision.
Good RPGs with the unique alchemy twist. In fact, I actually wrote an FAQ for the second game a few decades ago that's floating around on the internet and put it on my resume when I applied for a job at Nipponichi Software America, the Western publisher who localized the game for the US. And they contacted me too, but that's a story for another video. The games didn't have the same light and fluffy vibes previous games in the series had, but they still weren't exactly heavy on overall story. Numerous fun events.
Imagine being a fan of a game series and then also getting potentially hired. What a dream that could be as a fan.
Would play out between the different characters in the games as players progressed. I personally really loved these games simply for the fact that there was no time limit in the way to interfere with experimenting with alchemy, and the stories themselves emphasized adventure more. Both Atelier Iris and Atelier Iris 2 still have my favorite Atelier soundtracks in the entire series. The arranged soundtracks for these games are also incredible, even almost 2 decades later here in 2024. After the Atelier Iris trilogy, Gust moved on to create the Monachemia.
How dare you not make us listen to something like that? How dare you? Would have put that in here.
Duology with Monachemia, Alchemist of Alrevis, and Monachemia 2, Fall of Alchemy, released between 2007 and 2009 on the PlayStation 2 and PlayStation Portable. Both of those games also continued featuring male main characters in a school environment, but the second game actually let you alternatively choose to play as a female main character, and events would have a greater variation depending on who you chose. I didn't enjoy Monachemia as much as Atelier Iris due to the re-implementation of the time limits to complete exams, and I prefer the more traditional adventuring to being locked down to a school environment in any JRPG. But a lot of people like these games, and I can understand why. Every mainline Atelier game from Atelier Iris on has received Western localizations, even if Europe and Australia didn't get anything official for Monachemia 2 in particular. However, most of the Atelier spin-off games are still only officially available in Japanese, and while these super early Western released Atelier games exist, they can be hard to legally obtain, so your best bet would be to play them with emulation if that doesn't offend you. The next game in the series, Atelier Rorona,
I don't think emulation is any issue. If a game's not available, I think it is completely fair to emulate it, as it is 100% still essentially promotion for the game. Of course, if it's a new release, that's a problem. But if it's like an old game, and I feel like it's a promotion for the game, and it's also a promotion for the series. Emulate!
The Alchemist of Arland is where the game visually matured from its 2.5D roots to full 3D models, and the alchemy system was also further developed. This visual aesthetic has carried over to Atelier games as we know them here in 2024, when I'm publishing this video. This game returned to the Atelier series roots with a Bishoujo protagonist, a light and fluffy story, and alchemy-themed exams that needed to be completed in a certain time limit. The original game was released in 2010 on the PlayStation 3, and a plus version of the game with additional post-game content was later released on the PlayStation 3 and Vita in 2013, and later on the DS in Japan only in 2015. Later in 2018, this version of the game became available on the PlayStation 4, Switch, and PC too. Similar to Atelier Marie, players would need to replay the game multiple times.
Interesting. Very interesting.
To see all of the game's plot lines. 2 more games in the Arland trilogy released. Atelier Totori, The Adventure of Arland, takes place 5 years after Atelier Rorona, and Rorona teaches the new protagonist, Totori alchemy, as Totori adventures to Arland to find her missing mother. In the third game, Atelier Merudu, Apprentice of
Mommy issues, the game.
Ireland, Marudu is a princess who forces Totori to teach her alchemy so she can help her kingdom prosper. She has to
Forces. That's fun.
achieve goals by time limits to continue working as an alchemist. Both Atelier Totori and Atelier Meruru received plus versions like Atelier Rorona that added additional content to the games. These plus versions were released on the same platforms that Atelier Rorona were released on. Speaking frankly, like the Monokemia games, I couldn't get into the Arlen trilogy because the time limits bothered me. All the games were in a category I respected rather than enjoyed myself, but thanks to the good impression the Atelier Iris trilogy left on me, I continued to keep an eye on the Atelier series. Gust's next arc of the Atelier series was the Dusk trilogy. Atelier Ayesha, The Alchemist of Dusk, released on the PlayStation 3 in Japan in 2012, and the rest of the world in 2013. Rather than giving the player multiple time limits, the game just gave one time limit to accomplish the goal of reuniting with Ayesha's sister, with easier objectives to accomplish along the way. This lighter time mechanic is probably why I enjoyed this game a lot more than all the other 3D Atelier games that came before it. Atelier Ayesha received a novel called Asha no Atelier, Aru Renkin Jutushi no Tabi no Niki Yori, or Ayesha's Atelier, from the Diary of an Alchemist's Journey. In addition, a World Guide CD narrated by voice actresses for Ayesha and Neo from the game came with PlayStation 3 pre-orders in Japan and explained the game.
Ooh, pretty cool. That's actually kind of cool. Yo, other games should do that too. Peak.
Game setting. Atelier Eska and Logi, Alchemists of the Dusk Sky, released on the PlayStation 3 in 2013 in Japan and 2014 in the rest of the world. Similar to Monokemia 2, the game features a female and male protagonist that the player can choose from at the beginning of the game. The main story for both of them is the same, but a few events and endings are only available with specific protagonists. Logi and Eska use different tools for item synthesis, and the new alchemy system lets players combine different items. Similar to Atelier Ayesha, this game was also much lighter on the time mechanics, which contributed greatly to my ability to enjoy playing the game. Atelier Eska and Logi was the first Atelier game to receive a 12-episode season.
So the guy's main criticism is the time limits. I wonder how obnoxious the time limits really are. Noted Samax.
Of anime. It was also adapted into manga by Chako Abeno that ran in Dengeki Mach from December 2013 to November 2014. The last game in the Dusk trilogy, Atelier Shally, Alchemists of the Dusk Sea, was released on the PlayStation 3 in Japan in 2014 and everywhere else in 2015. This game had much larger fields to gather materials from for alchemy. Players could also choose between two protagonists in this game, Shalistera Argo, who is trying to save her village from demise, or Shalat Elminus, who is trying to become a proper alchemist. Like the Arlen trilogy, deluxe or plus versions of the Dusk trilogy with additional content were later released on future platforms. The games can be enjoyed here in 2024 on the PlayStation 4, Nintendo Switch, PC, or the Vita. Gust's next Atelier arc was the Mysterious trilogy beginning with Atelier Sophie, the Alchemist of the Mysterious Book. Koei Tecmo took over Western publishing rights from Nipponichi Software America for the Atelier series starting with this game. A new alchemy-centric system was created in which the main character Sophie would get new alchemy recipes by being inspired by her actions in the game, like harvesting, exploring, or battling. Alchemy was made to be more of a puzzle involving visual trial and error with perfect arrangements giving players bonuses. Players could also craft costume items to customize the character plot.
Interesting. Depends on the game. Some time limits are more strict, some are more open. Okay.
Time and weather would also change things in the game world, like enemy spawns or shop discounts. Sophie's goal in the game is to restore a talking book's memories and return it to its former human form. Atelier Sophie sold 400,000 copies by 2021. It sold so well that a fourth game was added to the mysterious...
Damn, not bad. Seems to be financially successful quite a bit, in fact. Pretty good.
Series in 2022 that was a direct sequel of this game called Atelier Sophie 2, The Alchemist of the Mysterious Dream. Atelier Firis, The Alchemist and the Mysterious Journey, has a time management aspect for the first year of the game, but the rest of the game has unlimited time. Item synthesis continues in a puzzle style for this game. Firis can also synthesize at campfires using a portable atelier. Catalyst can greatly...
Bro, they are rapid. The series must be very beloved because holy shit, they're rapid firing game after game after game. How many games are there? Holy shit, goodness.
They change synthesized items, and mass synthesis can create items that change the fields. Different materials could be obtained from things depending on how they're destroyed or interacted with. The game features a day and night cycle, and is also the first open-world Atelier game. Atelier Lydia and Suelle, The Alchemists and the Mysterious Paintings is the third game in the Mysterious arc, with the player controlling the twins Lydia and Suelle. The twins work to improve their skill in alchemy and uncover a mysterious-looking painting that draws them into a world full of rare materials, perfect for alchemy and improving their ability to run a successful atelier. Other than that, the game is very much a slice of life, with the twins doing various quests for people to improve the Atelier's reputation. It was a bit of surprise when Gust released a new game in the Arland arc of the Atelier series in 2019 called Atelier Lulua, The Scion of Arland, worldwide in 2019. Main developers from the Arland series returned to create this game. Unlike other games in the Arland series, however, the time limits were removed. The game also featured a book called The Alchemy Riddle, which provided goals to the player to accomplish. Developing relationships with people and completing the quests would change.
Damn, bro. Damn. Rapid fire in games. Especially without particularly sacrificing quality, which is really interesting.
The endings players could receive. In 2019, the beginning of the Atelier arc most of the people watching this video will probably be familiar with was released, and that was Atelier Ryza, Ever Darkness and the Secret Hideout, the first game of the Secret arc. This game's most striking change from its predecessors was definitely the shift of the battle system from a strict turn-based system to a more active real-time turn-based system. This game also introduced some automation to gathering and synthesis, which has been my personal favorite addition to the Atelier series overall. I love synthesis in these games, and that's sort of the point, but it can take way more time than it needs to make simple items, so automation is a huge time saver. Ryza's synthesis system also eased back a bit on the puzzle elements and was streamlined to be more accessible to a wider audience. The Ryza game's alchemy system is personally my favorite in the series too. Atelier Ryza's story has a very strong theme of kids maturing into professional adults.
Interesting. Okay. Now this, I've seen this girl somewhere before. So that's probably the only character I've ever seen, likely. Well, and then obviously some of the gacha stuff.
Setting carries a summer theme and adventure vibe similar to the Goonies. Atelier Ryza got a manga serialization in Kadokawa Game Linkage's Shukan Famitsu magazine on September 17, 2020. An Atelier Ryza anime aired from July 2nd to September 17, 2000.
Not bad, even a manga as well again.
2023. Atelier Ryza became the series' best-selling Atelier game at 500,000 units sold as of August 2020. Rysalind Stout herself was nominated in Japan's Famitsu Dengeki Game magazine for Best Character in their 2019 Game Awards. So it was no surprise that Gus decided to make the second game in the Secret series a direct...
Not bad. Thighs and alchemy. Pretty girls and alchemy. It just works. You know why? It's a classic. You have a game concept, you add cute women to it, cute anime women, and it sells like I don't know. It's just crazy.
Sequel to the first game with Atelier Ryza 2, Lost Legends and the Secret Fairy. Set 3 years after the first game, Ryza travels from her home to the capital and begins a new adventure there with her old friend.
Also, I can almost guarantee that this series has the strongest Yuri fan base the planet has ever seen. I am almost certain there's nothing as strong in this fandom as the shipping. 100%. Most definitely. Most certainly.
Friends and a few new ones. The game made slight improvements from the systems introduced in the first game, with the big changes being the new explorable areas. Atelier Ryza 2 sold 220,000 copies in its first month of sales before it even released in the West. While this game-specific sales numbers weren't revealed, it was revealed that this game and the first game combined had sold over 1.6 million units by March 17, 2023, just before the release of Ryza's third game, Atelier Ryza 3, Alchemists of the End and the Secret Key. But before that game was released, Atelier Sophie 2, The Alchemist of the Mysterious Dream, released worldwide in February 2022, adding a fourth game to the Mysterious arc. This game brought back and further refined the puzzle elements of alchemy from the first Sophie game. The combat also went back to the turn-based style featured in all the other non-Ryza Atelier games. Sophie could interact with glowing materials on the field to begin a gathering minigame to potentially improve the items she could gather. This was a very fun game that reviewed just as well as the Ryza games before it, and sold over 200,000 units worldwide as of the sales numbers revealed in April of 2022. Atelier Ryza 3, Alchemist of the End and the Secret Key released worldwide in March of 2023. The game introduced magic keys that unlock new options in adventuring and synthesis.
Interesting. Yeah, the series is doing really well. How have I not touched this ever before? I am questioning things. Ryza does have a bit of a Yuri vibe due to one character. Okay.
And can open up new areas in the game too. The game also loads all the fields in a region on one map instead of dividing them with loading screens, giving the game a much more open zone feel. The game features all the old characters and a few new ones that joined the party. This game also got really good reviews, and it ended up selling 300,000 units in a month of sales, making it the fastest selling game in the Secret series. The entire Atelier Ryza series had sold over 2 million copies by June 26, 2023. And that brings us to the most recent mainline Atelier game, which is called Atelier Wrestleriana, Forgotten Alchemy and the Liberator of Polar Night, which released for mobile and PC worldwide. This game is a free-to-play gacha game, so I don't know much about it myself, other than that it's got a lot of the main characters from past Atelier games in it. But hey, if you like...
I played it a little bit, but I didn't get into it. I dropped it. Maybe it's time.
Like gacha and you like the Atelier series, this game has got you covered. Aside from all the mainline games discussed and the spin-offs that the Salzburg arc talked about earlier, there were also many spin-off Atelier games created over the years that never saw a Western release. 3 Atelier spin-off games released on the Nintendo DS: Atelier Elise, The Alchemist of Ord, Atelier Annie, Alchemists of Sarah Island, and Atelier Lina, The Alchemist of Strahl. Atelier Annie actually did get a Western localization courtesy of Nipponichi Software in 2009. There was also Atelier El Crone, Dear for Automate, released in Japan on the Sony PSP in 2012, and 2 Atelier spin-off games released on the iOS and Android in Japan called Atelier Questboard and Atelier Online, Alchemists of Bresile, released in 2014 and 2018 respectively. The most recent spin-off...
They fucking had an MMORPG? That's crazy. It's over a year-old video, so this is an over a year-old video, so it's missing the 2 most current games. Okay.
Game is Nalke and the Legendary Alchemists, Ateliers of the New World, which released worldwide in 2019. The Atelier series of JRPGs are very distinguishable from other JRPGs with their relaxed slice-of-life storytelling and alchemy puzzle elements. The games usually emphasize improving the lives of other people or finding missing people over things like saving the world. NPCs also get a fair amount of character development as you do quests for them and progress in the story. In addition, there are the familiar elements that tie all the games together too. Characters like Pamela the Ghost and Hagel the Blacksmith that show up in a lot of these games. And cute things like the main characters exclaiming barrel or taru every time you...
It's a barrel! That's funny. Oh, a barrel! The gacha got ended and turned off line mode, and the setting of the gacha actually became the current newest Atelier game. Interesting. Interesting.
Interact with a barrel in the games. I think that is the reason these games are able to continue to get sales and continue to earn respect from players after more than 25 years since Atelier Marie's original release. While Atelier games aren't kids games, they are pretty consistent in their gameplay and wholesomeness, which also put them in an increasingly popular cozy niche too. This gives Atelier games the potential to appeal to very broad audiences. Also, Shinichi Yoshike and veterans who created the series are still around at Gust maintaining the series' consistency, just like Yuji Horii maintains the consistency of Dragon Quest. The things that change between games and arcs are...
Yeah, the consistency of Dragon Quest. How about we get some consistent updates on Dragon Quest 12, if that's ever going to release? How about we get some consistency on how that the game's remakes and remasters don't get censored? Anyways.
Artists for a fresh look and additional composers to accompany series composer Daisuke Achiwa. Important gameplay aspects like gathering, alchemy, and exploration evolve with each new game in the series. Despite Gust managing to release Atelier games almost annually since 2001, the games are of decent quality and manage to distinguish themselves among other games in the series. Chances are, if you've played and enjoyed one Atelier game, there are probably other Atelier games you would also enjoy as well. Probably the most common questions that come up with the Atelier series for anybody curious about the games are, is the Atelier series any good, and which game do I start with if I want to get into this series? Whether you think the Atelier series is any good or not will depend largely on if you think you would enjoy the game's unique alchemy crafting mechanics, as those are really the game's unique hook. Compared to other JRPGs, the Atelier games are definitely on the more relaxed side, both from an overarching story and difficulty standpoint. A diligent player who develops their alchemy to a point where they...
Okay, so... I like JRPGs, so I probably would still like this. I would probably still like this. There's a good chance I would still like this.
can easily craft powerful items in these games will find that they are not very challenging even on their most difficult challenge levels. The more Atelier games you play, the easier it will be for you to know how to get to a point where you can easily craft powerful items too. If you play an older Atelier game with time-limited events, the challenge level is a little higher as you need to be careful with what you spend time gathering and crafting to accomplish everything in a single playthrough. This is especially true if you're aiming for the best endings in those games on a first playthrough. As for which game to start with in the Atelier series, there are many options depending on the platforms you play games on and what interests you in an RPG. You can probably find better deals on older Atelier games, especially if you buy the games in sets of their deluxe trilogies. But the newer games will have better user experience features in alchemy and adventuring. If you're like me and you hate missing things due to time limits, I can recommend starting with any game in the Mysterious series like Atelier Lydia and Sewell, the Alchemist of the Mysterious Paintings, Atelier Sophie, the Alchemist of the Mysterious Book, or Atelier Firis, the Alchemist and the Mysterious Journey. All three of these games are conveniently bundled into a Mysterious Trilogy Deluxe pack that can be purchased for multiple platforms, including Steam on the PC. Atelier Sophie 2, the Alchemist of the Mysterious Dream, is also an excellent game with nice user experience features, and I was able to enjoy the game without having played the first Atelier Sophie game beforehand. Or you can begin with Atelier Ryza, Ever Darkness in the Secret Hideout if you prefer a more active combat style than the turn-based combat in all of the other Atelier games. The active combat system from this first Ryza game carries over to the next two Ryza games as well, with some new features.
Okay. I'll look. Maybe it does interest me. I have no idea yet. We'll see. The Ryza trilogies also released deluxe editions yesterday. Interesting. So you're gonna play that game soon? I have not decided yet. I am a whore for JRPGs.
The Ryza games also streamlined alchemy a bit, making it a little bit easier to grasp for new players or people who aren't as crazy about deeper puzzle minigames in alchemy. Atelier Ryza 3, Alchemist of the End and the Secret Key experiments with more open zone design for its world maps, and while Gus didn't quite knock the gameplay out of the park in this respect.
Sold. You can pet dogs. Sold. I'm buying.
I think they were definitely on the right track with it, and I'd love to see them develop this more in future games. The freedom in being able to potentially synthesize strong items with alchemy early, and more open-ended growth systems in Ryza 3 as a result of its more open design give the game a unique flavor compared to all the other Atelier games too. But while I enjoyed it, it may not be for everyone, and a lot of players prefer the first two Ryza games to the third one too. One other important thing to mention is that while games in a series, like the aforementioned Mysterious Trilogy, are loosely related, playing them out of order is no big deal. You'll see main characters from other games in the series appear in cameos as mostly supporting characters in these games, but you won't spoil the games you haven't played yet if you don't know the characters. Order only really matters with Atelier Ryza if you care about the backstories of the characters in those games. Heck, I played Sophie 2 before Sophie 1 and I didn't feel spoiled at all. But I also don't pay attention to story as much as a lot of people do, so take my opinion to be worth a grain of salt. If you buy any of the games, I suggest—
For me, it's more so I need to play games in order. It doesn't sit well with me just to start. It'd be like starting Dragon Ball Z without having seen Dragon Ball. It feels weird. Yes, you can do it, but it feels weird.
Just buying the plus or deluxe versions of the games as they have more content than the original games do. The only games in the Atelier series I couldn't really get into are the original Arlen trilogy and Monachemia games. But don't let that stop you from trying out the games if they seem interesting to you. I personally think the series has only gotten better over time, and I enjoy Sophie 2 just as much as I liked the Ryza trilogy. The Atelier Iris games hold a special place in my heart, even if they're only a little better than middling as JRPGs. And I have a soft spot for Atelier Ayesha, as it was the first 3D Atelier game I really enjoyed, but its mechanics are probably outdated compared to modern Atelier games at this point, so I have a hard time recommending it. The Secret series featuring Ryza is heads and shoulders above the other games in popularity and sales, but speaking frankly, as someone who's been with the series since Atelier Iris, I don't think the Secret series is that much better than the other Atelier arcs when it comes to gameplay. I think most people who play the Atelier games care more about characters than anything else, and Tori Damono's artwork with the Ryza games just made it a juggernaut when it comes to character popularity. Compared to a lot of the more princess-like Bishoujo or beautiful girl designs many of Atelier's female leads have, Ryza has a very sporty, tomboyish design. It's not just Ryza either, but the other characters in the game have good designs and are developed well enough with their in-game interactions too. Especially Claudia, who looks more like an Atelier game main character than Ryza does. Ryza demonstrates a lot more leadership and assertiveness as a main character than a lot of other Atelier leads do. She just overall seems more relatable than a lot of the other female leads in Atelier games. That's just my opinion, of course. While I can pretend that's all it is, there are also a ton of memes and jokes flying around about Ryza's appearance and presentation in the games that have definitely got—
Claudia. The one on the screen is the one who gives Ryza Yuri vibes? Okay.
garnered interest in the series from people who've never played an Atelier game in their life, too. And that probably helped sales. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.
In other words, I have to play an Atelier game eventually. I have to. I'm a whore for JRPG, so I have to eventually. I'll just have to eventually. Anyways, that's interesting. I may need to pick one up and stream one eventually. Anyways, like, comment, and subscribe.